Hey, Tony Gaskins here. Bigger than I wanna be, but just ordered me a ribeye steak. Headed to the house, and when the pop on here, I had did another video about that P Diddy thing, and I'm listening to it, and this is the most just interesting thing in the world. It's like normally you hear this stuff on like one of them documentaries that happened a long time ago when you wasn't around or didn't have social media or TV, and it happened in a state on the other side of the country or something like that. But just to be living and hearing this, and when you think about it, it's like, imagine like if it was, you know, B.B. King, Barry Gordy or something, you know, like a legend from back in the day, that if we heard about this stuff, we'll just be flabbergasted. But to be hearing about this and to know that it's P Diddy. Now, one of the things that is interesting to me is I've been talking to clients who have gone through some very, very abusive relationships. I mean, just stuff I can't even repeat. And multiple clients. And so hearing it from these women who have changed their lives and who have left, what they're telling me is that while they feel bad for Cassie, they don't believe she was just 100% a victim. That they don't believe that she wasn't complicit at all, or kind of like wanting certain things out of the relationship and willing to give a lot of what she gave, but then understanding that there were things that were beyond her control and that probably went further than she wanted it to go. And it reminds me of that quote that says, sin will take you further than you want to go and cost you more than you can afford to pay. And that right there just hit me, you know, because that's what it's seeming like happened with the Cassie situation. Like, it's just, it got out of hand. Like when she came in, it probably was like, oh, this is cool, private jets, this and that, 5-star restaurant, 5-star hotels. And then by the time the first hit, talking about him, not music hit, but him hitting, by the time that first happened, it probably just was so much good that had been stacked up. So much laughter, so much fun, so many, you know, play wrestling, so many Chanel bags, so many gifts that you like, you know, you just start to withdraw just a little bit from that account, like I talked about in the other video. And it's just crazy how sometimes things can become addicting. Like, we could be addicted to toxicity, addicted to abuse, addicted to drama, addicted to a lifestyle. And one of the things that I have found is the most powerful drug in the world is money. As a celebrity life coach, the things that I see women put up with for a man with money is just, it's mind-boggling. And I have seen women be abused, and they will wait until a man's career is going down to leave. Like, as long as he's making the same amount of money, they stay. And that's the crazy thing to see. But I've I remember a woman told me after she had been abused, she was like, yeah, he only has $1 million left in his account, so he's going broke. I was like, huh? Yeah, no, a lot of money. But I'm guessing the man had a lot more at one point. And so she was like, she gone, she leaving to go be with a man who was making over 20 million a year. And then that man became abusive. And then when he lost his career, she left him too. And so it was like crazy to see how sometimes certain people have been raised in such a way that their biggest fear is just financial security. And they'll go through whatever abuse they gotta go through as long as the money is there. And then when the money's not there, they'll leave. And I'm not saying that was Cassie's situation, because I mean, P Diddy always had money, and he still had money even when she decided to leave. So that's not the case with that, I wouldn't think. But it's just crazy to see how just this cycle works. And I think that what I've been telling my clients is, who have made it out, like they made it out alive after going through extreme abuse, I'm like, document it. Like, write a book on your feeling. Like, write a book about everything that happened and everything that you did. And it's one thing to read about the cycle of abuse in a book. It's another thing to hear the book talk, meaning to hear somebody who has gone through it tell their story. And one of the interesting things for me that I've been hearing is how at times the man or woman who is being abused, and they say that they don't like it, when the abuser is getting ready to leave, the man or woman will do something to manipulate the abuser to stay. Now that is an interesting phenomenon. And as we understand it, in the cycles of abuse, is now this man or woman has attached their identity and their self-worth and their self-esteem to this person. And they start to feel like, well, if this person doesn't want me, then, and they already have abused me and called me out of my name and treated me so bad, then who will want me? If they could see me like this and treat me like this and do me like this, and they don't even want me, who will want me? And I have seen men and women be abused and they will start to adapt. I seen a guy who was literally being beat on. I mean, being hit with all kind of objects. I mean, blood drawn, everything. And he would not leave. He would not leave. And the reason why he would not leave is because he didn't have the financial stability to live on his own. As a grown man, as a completely grown man, he didn't have the financial stability to live on his own. And because he was helping pay the bills, he's like, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. And that's when the man is paying the majority of the bills, but can't pay all of the bills. And that's another interesting phenomenon that isn't often talked about, where when the man is being abused and he stays. And this man was being tore up from the floor up. I mean, just getting wore out verbally, physically, everything. And he would not leave. And then instead of just being a victim, he also started to become the antagonizer. Like it was almost like he would see the woman's insecurity, and the woman was insecure, just struggling with everything, her weight, her finances, everything. He would see the woman's insecurity, and he would know what would trigger her, and he would start to do what would trigger her. Knowing that she can't control her emotions, that she has zero emotional intelligence. So he would trigger her, she would go off, do everything, break stuff, curse him out, hit him, beat on him, jump on him, beat on him, and then he would then go back into his victim shell. Like he would intentionally do the very thing that he knew would set her off. And then he would go back into his victim shell and, oh, I can't do this no more. Oh, I can't take this. Oh, this is over. Oh, this is done. And he would get a lot of attention. And then he would make her the bad guy. But it was like after provocation. And yeah, we all say that, oh, it's nothing that you do that should make somebody hit you under any circumstance. And that's not true. It's just not true, because we human beings. So you can provoke a human to hit you. Like, that's easy. Like, you do that. Like, your child get provoked and be knocking the mess out of people. Your teenager and your young adult and your full grown adult, you could be provoked because you're a human. I would imagine at some point you could provoke a robot to go off on you and slap fire from you. But it's like so definitely a flawed human could be provoked. And so we see this, and this is a real thing, you know, it's a real thing. And it's unfortunate, but it's a real thing. And so this thing is serious, man. It's not about not understanding. Some people think that, oh, because people are saying that Cassie isn't 100% innocent, and that it's not true that she didn't have an opportunity to leave time and time again and chose to stay, and it's not true that every single thing that she did, she was forced to do. Because people are saying that, it doesn't mean that every person doesn't care about her or is insensitive or doesn't understand the cycle of abuse. It's just that there's not always just a one size fits all. And so to me, to hear men and women who have gone through it start to kind of change their stance after hearing all the details, it's been very interesting to hear. And because I already have my thoughts and feelings about it, and I understand and I get how abuse works. I also believe that humans are strong and humans are resilient and humans can overcome. And our pain tolerance and our endurance level is so high. And it's weird, but it's sometimes we become a glutton for pain. I remember a woman, an ex-girlfriend, telling me that she doesn't believe I love her if I won't fight her, like if I won't get mad, like abuse her. She was saying she don't believe that I love her. And I'm like, well, why do you feel that way? She said, because all my sisters have all been choked by their boyfriends or their husbands, and they all still together. And my mom has always been choked by my dad, and they still together. And I was like, wow. And so what happens is that can take over in a relationship. That type of spirit, and that type of spiritual warfare, it can dominate a relationship. It can completely change a relationship to where the relationship just becomes about mental, emotional, and physical abuse. And what'll happen is it becomes a two-way street to where the woman, if she is being physically abused, sometimes she will become the mental abuser. And I never forget when I was in a toxic relationship and my sister came to me and she said, yeah, such and such said that she loved to make you mad. She loved to see you mad. And I was like, wow. And then what I noticed was, in certain times in relationships, one party would trigger the other party because they felt like they could endure the beating. And the party that's doing the beating would like do it in a way to where it's like they going through the motions. Like they could have been killed a person if they wanted to kill the person. But they do enough. It's almost like WWE punches. It's like, it's a real punch. Like, it could draw blood. It could do all that, but they don't do enough. It's like they do enough like they hitting a punching bag. That punching bag lived the next day. When you could go get a knife and stab that punching bag and just go ripping and just leak all the sand or all the beads or whatever in that punching bag, you can leak it all out and it be done for. But all you do is just hit it and hit it and hit it, and you just let it stay there. And every time you angry, every time you frustrated, you go hit that punching bag, but you never do enough to completely deflate it. When you could just go get a knife or go get a gun and just blow it to smithereens. But instead, you just hit on it. Anytime you're frustrated. Same thing with a stress ball. You just squeeze it as hard as you can, as hard as you can, as hard as you can. When you could just go get a knife or some scissors and cut into that stress ball and be done with it. And that's how that abuse is in some relationships, to where like the abuser is abusing physically, but he or she knows that they're not doing enough to kill the person. And here's the other side of it that a lot of times people don't think about and identify, is sometimes a person will, the one who is being physically abused will then go into warfare and start to mentally, psychologically, mentally, emotionally abuse the weaker mental person. So you can have somebody that's weaker mentally but stronger physically. And then you can have somebody who is stronger mentally but weaker physically. And so sometimes, and it could be the man or the woman in either role, it depends. I've seen it both ways, because I remember coaching a guy who his woman was stronger than him, and she punched him in the nose, bust his nose, picked him up in the air and body slammed him on the hood of the car. And he did not hit her back. But what he would do is he would text another woman, DM another woman, stare at another woman booty. Like, he would do something to trigger her. And then that's how her being emotionally unintelligent, she would snap physically. But then he would trigger her intentionally with disrespect, knowing that she gonna snap physically. But then when she snapped physically, now she would become remorseful and start doing a million sexual favors. And so then he get to fulfill his sadistic lust. And at the same time, I remember a young lady doing the same thing. She would trigger the man, and then the man would go off physically, and then she would reinforce his physical altercation, which wouldn't draw blood or anything like that, or not even black eyes and bust lips. It would literally be like WWE. And then she would go and have sex with the man and reinforce that. And she said that turned her on. So what you have to understand about this abuse is sometimes, not all the time, sometimes it goes both ways. Because here's one of the things that happens oftentimes when it's one-sided. When it's one-sided and the other person doesn't want it, doesn't believe in it, gets nothing from it. When it's one-sided, what'll happen is that fight or flight will kick in. And the person who is 100% a victim would rather be dead than to stay in that relationship. Because you go into fight or flight and you're like, if I don't leave, I'm going to die. So if I'm gonna die by staying, I might as well take my chances of living by escaping. And that's something that a lot of people don't acknowledge. And it's been made to think that, and this is why not everything you read in a book, what you have to realize, what you read in a book can never fully speak for real life. Because what a book is, whoever wrote The Cycles of Abuse was studying a human or humans, but they could not study every human. They could not study tens of thousands. They studied the mind, and they honestly could also have been speaking from personal experience. So you're never gonna find something in a book that's gonna completely 100% encompass somebody's experience. And that's where you have to understand the caveats and the nuances, and you gotta use wisdom. And so we are created as humans to escape. We're created as humans to leave. That's why somebody coined it fight or flight. You either feel like you are strong enough to withstand and to engage in warfare, and that's your fight, or you feel that you cannot withstand this attack, and that induces your flight response. And so this is very nuanced, and you got to understand. And so what you have, and so I had a client, well, not just one, but several, look back and identify where they played a part or where they entertained it or where they started to become what they were dealing with. And that's why the quote says, when dealing with a monster, make sure you don't become one. So, hey, this deep. And on this type of stuff, I had the comments off just because this is for people who are either going through this to be able to be introspective, because there's people that's watching this that's being hit on right now, and they have a choice to make. And they have to decide, do I leave or do I stay? And they have to look and they have to say, have I adopted this behavior? Have I adapted to this behavior to where I see this as normal? And am I engaging in this? Am I reinforcing it? Am I doing my own type of manipulation? And the last thing I'm gonna say is, it was another time where I saw with a real life case study where the woman came from poverty and she had a poverty mindset. And so what she loved was like things like gifts, like physical things. And so what she would do is she would trigger the man. Like she would do things to make him go off, and he would just berate her verbally, just literally attack her verbally. And then after he would do that, he would feel like trash. She wouldn't let the words affect her because she knew what she did. He would feel like trash, and then he would shower her with gifts. And so, but if you looked at the situation, he would be seen as insecure, jealous, controlling, and verbally abusive. But nobody without a trained eye could identify that she was intentionally triggering him and doing things to make him paranoid and to make him feel or think that she was cheating on him. And it was all to get a response, to get what she wanted. And I had to deal with this here and learn by studying this, how this can work, how this can go both ways, and how some forms of abuse it's undisclosed and nobody even notices it. And it takes sometimes the person who was doing it to be the bigger person when they change their life and grow and admit to what they were doing. In other words, it's that term we call throwing the rock and hiding your hand. So you see how, like, people have come up with all kind of stuff now. People have come up with all kind of stuff to, describe this stuff. But we just have to also remember that nothing encompasses every single thing. Like, it's gonna be some things that we just don't have the words for, that we have just never seen that exact case, and there's not a word. There's something close to it, but nothing that's exact. And I think what happens is, that's what happens, and that's why I tell y'all, I try my best to stay away from like blanket labels. So everybody who I do coaching with, they be like, Tony, I know you don't like the word narcissist. It's not that I don't like the word narcissist, because I use it myself too in certain situations, but it's just that I know that there's so many caveats and nuances that when we are going through something or we experience something and we look for a definition, if there's nothing that's exactly what we experience, we grab what's closest to it. And we become a hypochondriac, and we will misdiagnose because we saw a couple of symptoms. And it's like, oh, well, that's good enough. There's a couple things. But hey, this Tony Gaffney, y'all forgive me. I got both hands full, a million bags. God bless you. We'll talk soon. Oh, all the important links in the description.